Aloha, Flow Riders.
Preemptive yo.
Welcome to the flow. Why is that a preemptive yo? That's funny.
A preemptive
That is,
yo for the flow. Yep.
that is amazing in and of itself. Oh, what's happening, people? What's happening? It is another Tuesday. It is time to record the flow. Today we got something cool. We have guests. When Katie told me that she was going to have her friends on and they were going to come and be our guests today and what the name of their show was, I thought, dang it, I could have used that name for my DJ memoirs.
It is a great name, and they have an even better theme song that was written by another one of our friends. So it's just all around incredible. Friends helping friends.
Absolutely. So what's going to happen here is we are going to go ahead and kick this bad boy off. We're going to bring them on. You guys remember, if you have questions, throw them in the old chat with a nice little Q. Colon. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Good Lord. It is early. Never mind. Q colon. Put a Q colon in the chat.
Or just a Q. We'll still find it. We're watching.
All right. Yeah. Let's go. We're going to get it started. If you haven't done so already, make sure you jump over to the old iTunes music store. I still say that. It's Apple Podcast store. Why people got to change stuff and mess me up? You go to the Apple Podcast app or the Apple Podcast link in your website and then, subscribe, leave a review, things like that. Of course, you can always reach us at flow@ecamm.com, but we are going to get it started. And yeah, let's do this. I'm ready.
I'm ready.
It's already funny. We just started.
Punchy today as usual.
Hey.
Ta-da! Welcome to John.
You're amazing.
To Luis. John and to Mark from the If These Balls Could Talk podcast, which is hands down our new favorite name for a podcast, guys. Way to go.
There we go.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Thank you.
I really like your sweater, Katie.
Thank you. We saw them.
I didn't know. Amazing.
Yeah,
Luis, before to make your job easier for the edit, we should pull that back and let Katie introduce them, and then you swipe them in. Otherwise, you're not going to have a clean edit point.
It's important to have a producer behind the scenes at all times.
I like that he just appears too. Our producer's just always there, except for
guys
today,
are,
unfortunately.
Yeah, the production level of your podcast versus our podcast is like leaps and bounds, but it's amazing.
Okay, well, we're showing you all the behind the scenes today because we're having all of the fun tech challenges.
You go to the two up. I'll throw it to Katie. Katie, you're introduced John and Mark, and then we'll swipe them in just so Luis has a clean edit point. And then also, I got to start the flow. We didn't start yet. I didn't breathe and count down.
That didn't breathe and count down. All right.
So
back to Doc for countdown.
Yeah, here we go. Sorry, guys. I just want to make Luis's editing job a lot easier. Okay, Flow Riders, here we go. And 5, 4. Aloha, Flow Riders. Welcome to the Flow. I am your community manager, Doc Rock, along with my awesome co-host.
Hey, I'm Katie.
Today, we got a special guest, so we don't want to waste a lot of time. We're going to dive right in, but just make sure you hang around because this is fitting to be awesome. You might need to pull over the car because if anybody laughs and crash, not on me. All right. Anyway, so Katie, I see you brought some company along.
I did. So for those of you who don't know me well, or you only know me here in podcasting space and not in real life, I have some absolutely incredible friends that I tricked into being friends with me by getting married to their friends. But they have started a podcast. It is called If These Balls Could Talk. It is so much fun. And that's coming from someone who is like the mildest of sports fans. I'm like 90s hockey level sports fan, but I had the honor of being on their podcast recently, and I just wanted to bring them onto the flow to be able to let them talk through their process, how they got started. I've talked about their show a little bit over the last couple of weeks, so I think it's just going to be a lot of fun. But without further ado, here are John and Mark from If These Balls Could Talk.
Hey,
yay, we did it.
Hey guys, thanks for having us.
Thanks for hanging out with us today.
When Katie first said you guys were coming on, all I could think of was like, I really love the name of your show, and that would have been a perfect name for my DJ memoirs.
Amazing.
It kind of came up by total accident too. Like a lot of the stuff that we've done really wasn't on purpose. It was just someone like, what should we name it? It's like, what if it if these balls could talk. It's like, yes.
Well, and
So good.
specifically, and so we're talking about friends and friends through marriage. My sister-in-law, who is married to our producer Pete, who unfortunately couldn't be here today. We're talking about starting a podcast, and Mark's like, I think I want to start one, and I'm like, I want to do everything, right? As long as it involves talking to people, I'm in. And so Pete texted me and is like, I think Stephanie came up with the name, and he tells me if these balls could talk, and I'm like, oh my god, that's perfect, that's it.
Love it.
and then
Love a good
she
origin
does the
story.
theme song too, which just makes it even better.
Well, and so under your advice, we just went, right? We were like, okay, let's do a test episode. Katie was like, just don't worry about getting it right. Just get content out. And so we did our test episode and it went really well. It was super fun. And at the end of the test episode, Stephanie walks in. We're just doing it over Zoom. And she has kind of a test run of the theme song on her iPhone. And she plays it. And it's amazing. I mean, the name is really silly. The song is really silly because it matches. But, and I really liked it. I really liked the voice of it, and just the fact that we're kind of just friends having fun.
Yeah, I think there's so many huge things in there. So I wanna split it out. I want to say to everyone that's watching, the theme of this show has been and continues to be that you're here watching or listening because you care about podcasting. You're probably here because you've started a podcast or are thinking about starting a podcast. And we say over and over again, just do it. Just press the button, record, be silly, have fun. Don't overthink things too much. And I love that both of you were like, yeah, in. I mean, I think from the moment where you're like, I think we should do a podcast, to like, how do we do this podcast, to me listening to the first episode was probably like a week. I feel like it went really fast. And I love that because I get asked all the time, and I'm sure Doc does as well, you know, how do I do this? How do I get started? I've been thinking about it. And I love that you were just like thinking about it, doing it really quickly, because that in many ways is just the best way to stop yourself from talking yourself out of it or overthinking it to death, or losing a lot of the fun and the reason why you wanted to get into it.
It helps
So
the
Definitely
guys
a
that are
rip the
aggressively
band-aid
type A.
moment, right? It's called the rip the band-aid moment. Like if you literally sit
Yep.
there and think about it too long, you're totally going to change your mind. And so, and get scared is what everyone uses, but I think it's more than just scared. A lot of it has to do with the confusion of not knowing where to start or what you should do, whatever. And normally, if you pick any platform, I think the biggest fear is, oh, which platform should I use, right? It's, even having done this since before there were actual platforms, but you had to code them by hand. Way back in the day, there's like 3 or 4 apps that were available. And even then, you would sit there and look at the 4 apps and goes, which one of these should I use? And at the end of the day, that you still had to write the XML by hand. So it's kind of funny, but it's in the same position right now, being afraid to make that first mistake.
Yay, we have Pete.
Oh, hey.
Hey, can you guys hear me okay?
We
Yes.
can. You're a little fuzzy, but that's okay. We're happy to have you here.
Yeah, sorry. It's kind of tightened up like Fort Knox over here at work.
All good, all good. Yeah, we were just talking about getting started, Pete, and I love that that you guys as a team just like really embraced it and moved forward, and not only like, you know, I think jumped in and got started with, you know, a name and like a theme song, but you've done a really great job, I think, too, in really thinking through a smart format. Do you want to share with us? Mark, maybe let's give specific questions so we don't talk on top of each other. But how did you come up with the format of like, okay, we want it to be a sports podcast, but we also really want to incorporate friends and conversation and pop culture into the mix?
So this is definitely something that John and I have done for years. I mean, we've known each other since college, like 25 years at plus that we've known each other. And this is just, the podcast is really essentially just us talking to each other for stuff that we've done for like 27 years, right? That's how long we've known each other, right? Seems like yesterday we just
24. You keep coming up with numbers.
24. I'm just
Still
I'm just
a
gonna
long
keep
time, though.
I'm just gonna keep upping the numbers. Like, yeah, we've known each other for 97 years. But it's John and I have you know, we've been sports fans. He's wearing a Yankee hat right now. He's a New York-based fan. I'm a Boston based fan. Yeah.
Go
we
Sox.
Yeah, we've had a lot of interactions especially about sports, but we're both very well-rounded individuals too, because
Yeah.
we can definitely talk about just about anything. John definitely a little bit more of a talker than I am, but it's just everything just seemed organic with this. I think that's why it works, and it's so much fun for both of us, really.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you make
absolutely.
something that you can really be proud of, and people ask you about it. And I think the guest nature of it sort of just happened naturally too, where we did the first test episode, and we're like, okay, and they're like, we should have some guests,
Yeah.
and so we know a lot of people, and so we just literally started asking our friends to start, and they were like, you know what, this theme where we're adding a guest level, but also kind of changing the voice of our conversation every time we have a different guest really worked. And so then we just, started asking more kinds of people in kind of different walks of life, maybe not sports fans. And I think that just continues.
Yeah, I think so. For those of you who haven't yet checked out the podcast, the format is really cool because there are these like very obviously a lot of conversation about sports and what's happening and and everything in that world, but the episodes are also really catered and customized to each of the guests. So on my episode there was a lot of talk about pop culture and TV and movies and YouTube and all these kinds of things that I could speak to and felt generally comfortable speaking to. No totally off the cuff questions, but I think it makes it really great because there's always like a sub audience that's going to come over with those guests, and maybe they're not going to stay for every single episode, but they have that level of investment in it because they've been a guest on the show, right? So like you two may not have had any interest in checking out this podcast, but because I forced you to come on, maybe you'll check out a couple of other episodes or tell people that that you were on this episode. It helps to spread the word and to kind of grow that base, which I think is really huge. Doc's dropping in your link. So yeah, people
No, and then
really,
I just realized
a lot of
Paul
fun.
already did it because Paul is so quick. I'm like, okay, never mind. Let me just
Yeah.
do this and leave Paul alone. All right. So I have a question. In your first, what we on, like 80, almost 80 episodes now. What are some of the major takeaways or learning experiences that you've had thus far?
Yeah.
Well, I think the one thing that we've really been progressing through very quickly is audio quality. And so our friend Pete, who you saw for a second, is the most interesting person, right? Because he likes a million things, but what he's really good at is specifics of both video and audio quality. He's a professional video FX engineer, and so he works at a small company that does stuff for Hollywood, but he hears things that I don't, right, in sound. And so what he's been doing, we progressed through a single stream audio source edited in Premiere from Zoom, which was fine. And then we figured out how to get Zoom to do multiple track audio sources for each of the people on the podcast, which obviously is much better. And once we got that going, Pete developed a way to get us some audio EQ templates. And so we get the audio streams, we put them into Premiere that he's already mastered, and I edit it for content, and then we put it out. And so, start to finish, that's like a 3-day process. But it's really very clockwork right now. So we're putting them out with not that much challenge.
We've been learning a
Yeah.
lot too about like social media and marketing too, because that's definitely something we're trying to get the word out as much as we can. So we've been a lot of the stuff has just has been organic, but we definitely want to just try. We're trying to appease to the masses in some respects, but also have a somewhat of a specialized group of listeners. But I mean, a lot of the stuff, yeah, we've just been learning on the fly. I think, which I think we're all relatively smart individuals, and we've actually done something like this before, especially with Pete. We back in our college days, we helped. We helped with a friend's college band, and this one day was like, hey, we should record an album. It's like, yeah, none of us knew how to do that, but we just did it on the fly, and we turned out pretty good.
Mark, don't you still get royalty checks for like 10 cents?
I still get these 10-cent royalty checks from a band that had happened so long ago.
It's amazing.
I absolutely love that. I love the concept
Katie
of just.
Katie remembers the band.
I do.
They're on
I'm
Spotify.
just-
They're on Spotify too. I saw the other
the
day.
songs are just like playing in the background of my head. Yeah, no, I think it's a clever way to go. And again, something we really preach often here is this concept of just, figuring it out and not being afraid to push the buttons and to try and to find out who is in your network. Like, you are both lucky in that Pete is incredible. Like, I mean, Doc,
Absolutely.
you and Pete will probably be best friends. I was when I jumped on, Pete was like, "Oh, hang on, you're gonna want to make these couple changes. What are you using, a Roadcaster? Great. Like, you're gonna want to make these tweaks to your system." His knowledge and his ability to to just hear what's happening and to know what edits to make and what changes to make just makes a guest feel really comfortable. So I think learning those things, and you two have done a great job of picking up what different aspects of the podcasting flow, and taking ownership over those and learning them each week as something that everyone can do. I mean, that's something we've both been doing here on this show is learning what works and doesn't work, and learning how to stay calm when things don't go the way that you want them to, or, things happen out of left field. But
I
it's
think that's a really good
noticeable, the
point.
difference between start to where you are now. Just wrapped your first season. And from first episode to last episode, I hope you noticed the difference. Like, it's not that the first episode was terrible,
Huge.
but like the
Huge.
growth, the growth and the the level of confidence comes from just pushing those buttons and finding the right people, and and taking those risks. I mean, they're not even crazy risks, but small jumps, and teaching yourself as you go.
When we mess up less and our conversations are better. I mean, it's a sports podcast, but like, we've talked about diversity, we've talked about women in sports, we've talked about the pay gap in sports. I mean, we've talked about AI, and I think there was one episode we got into a whole aside about like the ethics behind like AI and like cyborgs. I'm just like, it just happens naturally too, which makes it so
I
cool
mean,
and
one
so
of the
fun.
most underrated point guards ever, and I grew up with him. He actually lived not that far from me when we were in like junior high and high school. But I think he's still one of the most underrated guys, and it had a lot to do with his attitude and not wanting to practice.
Oh, Allen Iverson. Yeah, absolutely.
You said AI. What the hell are you talking about? No,
Mark, I'm like, who? What?
I knew right
Mark's on
away.
it. He's got it.
I knew right away.
The funny thing is, this had nothing to do with him, but the shopping mall that wasn't that far from our neighborhood is actually called Iverson Mall. So
That's
when a lot of
Nice.
people that were younger thought that, oh, he owned the shopping mall, and I was like, no, man, that's been named that since like the 40s, man. It's not the same thing. I think what Katie was telling me about what you guys are doing with AI is just freaking absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
That
let's talk
so
about that for a
fun.
second, because I think we get this question all the time from flow riders or from Ecamm customers, is like, what do we do? AI is coming for our jobs. AI is taking, and how do we use it really effectively? How do we use it as podcasters and content creators? And yeah, do you guys want to talk a little bit about how you were using it on your website, about AI Story Hour that you're doing? I thought that was so clever. Such
Well,
a
we
fun
talked about
approach.
ChatGPT in one episode as one of just the questions, and we talked about how it's impacting people, how it's impacting jobs, and and so I've been kind of webmastering, and I thought it might be a fun idea to both relate it to our Discord and any of the input that we've gotten with people, but ask people for ideas to ask stories for the AI. And so AI Story Hour is on the website, and it changes 3 or 4 times a week, and we put ridiculous stories or ridiculous situations. This past episode, we talked about the greatest NBA team of starting lineup of all time. So that's what's on there right now. And content generation with
Allen
ChatGPT
Iverson was
is
not part of it, by the way, Doc.
so interesting. And really, you have to think about how it impacts, like what things you can get from it, and use it as a tool instead of as being scared of it.
I thought
Yes.
we had a great guest about he was actually telling us how he would use ChatGPT in his lessons, because he would say, okay, we know this is out there. Have ChatGPT just create the content, like 3 different essays, but then you have to actually grade them and use some critical thinking, so that you're trying to learn something, but you're also just being able to use the technology.
That's one of the things that I've been talking to everybody about is, listen, like, we have it. Okay, people of a certain vintage, we have had 3 or 4 major opportunities, and I've always been a curious person and a button presser, so I've always been in the majority of the opportunities, or at least, somewhere near adjacent, right? So I guess for us, it the computer was first, right? And then so we got to that thing, and then a lot of people, they dragged the butt about it, and then when maybe 10 years into computers, I was getting offers to go work at Adobe. I ended up at Apple, and people were like, "Oh man, like, oh, you're so lucky." No, because I told you guys back then we should do this, and you guys should learn how to code and learn some basic stuff. Let's make some websites, whatever. Everybody was dinging around and having fun talking to Becky and them, and then they was mad because they missed it. So a little bit after that came along, the whole web come along and e-commerce. So I told my guys back then, I said, "Hey, let's do this. Let's start something." Pogs were super huge in Hawaii. We were about selling Pogs online, right? And then
Remember
nobody
Pogs.
wanted to do the work.
Take me back.
So,
Yeah.
I ended up coding a bunch of the major sites here in Hawaii, working with Oceanic Cable, which is now Spectrum, and Hawaiian Airlines. And again, it was like, "Oh man, you got lucky." No, fool, I was there. I told you, let's go, but you didn't want to do it. So another inflection point right now is happening. And
Yeah.
this is the same thing as when we first got computers, back when I had my TRS-80 and everybody else wanted to do something dumb. Back when live video game came on with Xbox Live, where you could literally play, and you could play on Xbox Live, and we used to do like 16-man Halo tournaments, right? This is another one of those inflection points. So either you do it, you stay in it, and just be around it enough to figure out a way to find the lane, or you can keep worrying about it because your kid's going to cheat on the test. Trust me, parents, if your kid's cheating on a test, it's not your kid, it's your kid's teacher. And never let the
Yeah.
teacher tell you it's the kid, because good teachers teach well enough, nobody has to cheat.
It's true.
That's a good point.
It's so true. Yeah, I think
Simple.
I think there's a space for everyone to be able to use it effectively, and it's been fun to be playing around with it. I took feedback from last week's episode because Doc said, and I just finished our transcript in Descript, but one of the talking points was to take your clip that we were clipping in Descript, and take that and then put that text into ChatGPT to be able to get like an interesting talking point from your clip, and then use Descript again to put our own voice over it and have it as like an audiogram or a cool audio vibe. And I was like, I'm gonna do that this week. So get ready, everyone. As soon as we're done wrapping this up, that's on my next to-do list.
And as I play with it, there's super cool things you can do. You can ask it to reframe, so you can get an answer from it and then ask it to kind of reframe that answer differently. And so a good mental idea is to say, okay, I'm a real estate agent and I need a listing on some house in Connecticut, right? And so you can put the specific details and it'll give you a listing. And then you can say, I would like 10 social media posts, like 10 Instagram posts for this listing, and please relate it to related listings in the area. And so it'll give you 10 Instagram posts. And I got to tell you, you can't tell. You can't tell. It seems real. And so there is an engineer at Google who said, a number of them, Google's really up in arms. But was an engineer at Google that said that it is going to end the modern search engine within the next 2 years.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Because that's what Microsoft wants. Microsoft wants.
I believe that. I got into the Bing thing like a week ago.
They want it because they're Bing.
Right. So well, everybody was trying to get in, and they're like, "Oh, it's going to be like weeks." But I had put in for it before they made the announcement because I was listening to the leaks, right? And then again, like, if you're paying attention, you'll find these things out. I knew about the leak like 3 weeks prior to the actual event. And a lot of people was like, "Oh, Microsoft can't do this. They're Microsoft," But the minute they say, "Hey guys, here's a check for $10 billion," that's when I started paying attention to what Microsoft was doing in it. Because no one's going to give you 10B and just like, go ahead, take this. I see you when I see you. I loan my brother-in-law $50. Hey, I'm calling him every day. Hey, fam, where's my money, man? You know what I'm saying? So being in the Bing thing, and it's I can't believe I'm gonna say this, it's actually good. So for probably the last 2 weeks, I know, right? It's really it's kind of amazing. It's like all of a sudden, if the Lions were good, it's very
Lions
similar.
are good though.
Yeah, see, that's what. There you go.
See?
True story.
It's an upside down
So
world right now. Oh
we are living.
gosh.
Where's Barbara? We're living in the upside down.
We are.
Anyway,
We're
but
living in the upside down.
super amazing, and I'm kind of impressed at what it does. And then, so what was it, last week Friday or whatever, I got the email, and it's like, hey, Chat GPT Plus, right? And I was like, hey, I already have Jasper and Brainwork and about 3 other different AI programs, but I'm like, man, what's $20? I'm gonna throw it at it just to see what happens. And Chat GPT Plus is freaking incredible. So
Mm.
it's like, listen, fam, even if you're scared, even if you're worried, you wasted $120 on less. Spend the $20 to get Chat GPT Plus, spend 6 months with it and see if you, I mean, legit, give it a budget, give it 6 months, see what you come up with, and then bail if you don't like it. But you've thrown $120 at
Yeah.
less for, well, at that time, 90 something Jordan, 120.
Oh,
Now,
fast math.
1200.
Yeah.
1200. So, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I love it. Well, I think again, like this is a great example of a cool way that you can use it for podcasting, and I think it's really smart. So we should all kind of take note on what the possibilities are for, everyone's like, well, I don't know how we can use it for video, or I don't know how we can use it for podcasting. There are tons of ideas. Pick one, run with it, or
I mean, you
duplicate
could
what
be
other
your
people are
social
doing.
media manager.
Steal John and Mark's ideas. It's a good way to get up and running. I want to talk a little bit about, I see a question in the live chat, which is one of the reasons why everyone listening right now should be hanging out with us in our live studio audience. But Maureen asks all about seasons. And I know that you both just finished your first season. We don't do seasons here on the flow because Doc's a workaholic. No, just kidding.
What?
I'm a workaholic. No, but so how did you think through the idea of seasons? Is it something that you thought you would always do seasons? How long a break are you taking? How are you thinking that through and approaching it?
Well, so we were thinking about doing seasons from the beginning. I don't think for any good reason than we thought that we should.
Seemed fun. Yeah.
I looked up some stats, just research, right? And that's all it is. Everything we're doing is just figuring it out on the fly.
I love it.
And I looked up a 6 to 13 episode suggestion. It
Okay.
turns out that episode 11 was right in line with the Super Bowl, and being we're a sports podcast, that
So
made
you're like,
sense.
we're done for now.
And on top
Yeah.
of that, we're taking next week off because it's my birthday. So
Happy almost birthday, John.
Happy almost birthday.
Good.
That-
You know what's
that's
kind of a trip
awesome.
about that, what you said, is as a sports person, and maybe my season's a little different than most people. I get like extra month because I'm a round football, like the actual football fan.
We're
And
not a football
I
person,
go
yeah.
football, and then I go throw ball, and then basketball, baseball, hockey. So my season's a little different because it's global sports. I got a lot of chance, a lot of opportunity. But that month of July, when nothing happens good,
Nothing but
like the
baseball.
bet, you got baseball, and I can. It depends. If the Red Sox are sucking in July, I'm really irritated because I got nothing to watch. Right, I'll be super mad. But when we're good, I'm cool with that. But that month, I always laugh because there's nothing going on. You turn on any of these, 15 sports network, and we have gymnastics, we have twirling of some random twirls. There's pool tournament, which is cool, but not really. We got all kind of weird things going on. Highlight this week on ESPN Ocho, we got Highlight from Tampa Bay, Florida, and I'm just like, this is when you guys can take a break, right?
You know what? That's one good thing about sports though, especially when you talk about the NFL, you can talk about the NFL all year round,
All year
believe it or
long.
not.
True
True.
story.
So in July, that's around the time when there are mini camps going on and they're getting ready for
Yeah.
the preseason. That's one thing the NFL has over every single sports league. You can talk about the NFL all year long, and you could talk about every team all year long as well, because even the bad teams, there's just a lot of drama going on. So
Yeah.
but thankfully also John and I are really good, really big baseball fans, as evidenced by the hat that he's wearing. And we could talk about baseball forever, not only what's going on with the game today, but what happened, 20 years ago and stuff like that.
But I think a strength of the
That's
show too is that we're not putting ourselves in a lane. I mean, we're a sports
Yeah.
podcast and we're talking about sports, but also we're talking about pretty much the news cycle. And so
Yeah.
my process, I don't know if it's Mark's process, but we produce a show. I take the day off on Sunday when it releases, and on Monday I start watching, ESPN. I start watching the general news cycle,
Yeah,
and
research mode.
I kind of like grab a question or two, just as they come down, and then by the time we get to Wednesday, so we record on Thursdays. By the time we get to Wednesday, I generally have 7. Share it with our guest of the week, and so even in a doldrum time of sports, like when there is just baseball, I think we're going to be fine. I don't think there's going to be a lot that we can't talk about, and mainly because Mark and I just like talking to each other.
yeah, it's perfect.
there's,
Well, and
there's
also
so much
baseball
there.
is
Yeah,
really
love it.
good nowadays, right? It got bad rap for a minute, but they've done a really, really good job of making the game better, making the game more enjoyable and things like that. And of course, a lot of the old school people are
Have
super
they?
I think so.
I would argue against
think
that, Doc.
The entertainment at the park has gotten better than it used to be. There are a lot more, say 1-0, 2-0 games back in the day. You really don't see that now because of some of the loosen ups. And I guess that's what makes some of the OG, like my grandpa would be really mad right now. He would be mad at a lot of stuff that goes on in the game. But when we went to the park, we just went to eat. So my grandpa was about the game. I just wanted to eat.
Yeah.
I'm like, Pop, can I get some more popcorn? Yeah, sure. go ahead."
Exactly.
The food is
yeah.
so much better now too.
Oh my
The food
god.
is so
absolutely.
much better now too.
Yo, you know how
Yeah.
good food is? I went to go watch the Padres and the Reds, and I was in Petco, and I was like, good Lord, this is like Michelin star baseball food. They got these tri-tip nachos. It is so good. And what's genius about Petco is to get back to the hotel, you literally walk across the bridge
You're right next
and
door. Yeah.
you're in there. So when we
Well-
were in San Diego last as a company, we stayed in the same hotel. And I was like, oh man, too bad it's not baseball season because I so would have went to Petco and got some tri-tip nachos. It's the Padres we're talking about.
Yeah, but the gas lamp quarter in general is just awesome. There's so much,
It's true.
Right?
It's true.
so
As
many
soon
good
as
bars.
you walk out, so much to see, so much to do and eat. And so yeah, I was just listening to something the other day, and somebody was talking about, it was one of the British guys came over to go to a baseball game, and he was talking about what we have for food offerings at our parks versus they still got meat pies and tea. And he was like, you can get a beer, you can get tea, you can get meat pie, you can get popcorn. In America, they got Michelin star food in the baseball stadium. And he
Yeah.
had gone to like a Yankees game, and I was like, yeah, man, we definitely have sportstainment down, like really down. I'm looking forward to coming in talking about how USA soccer, I hate saying that word, will never get good until we get rid of college soccer and go to teams the way they do everywhere else in the planet except here.
That's an interesting perspective. Yeah.
Doc's gonna trick you into bringing him on as a guest soon. He's pulling out all his
Come on the
sports.
show.
lingo.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be awesome.
I love it.
But it's funny, our country, and your little kid, right? Your first sport, and for most people in the country, is soccer. And then somehow when you
It's
get
true.
to high school, some curmudgeon coach talks all of the guys out of it, and you got to do something else. And so we literally lose it at high school because of like coaching. And I'm like, this is horrible.
And money
And-
and the money invested into a football program. Yeah.
Right. So if you look at our men's team, right, especially our female team, there's no question, right? Our female teams play on some of the best teams in the world, right? They're like, they are the best in the world, period, point blank
Absolutely.
in the story. England is slowly catching up. Canada also slowly catching up. Our men's players play for the top teams in the world, right? We got men's players at Bayern Munich, at Barcelona. We got men's guys, in the EPL. Manchester United, my team, we just played Leeds a couple days ago, and they have 3 American players, and those 3 American players, and they about killed half of our guys, right? Tyler Adams is just out there breaking people. And Americans have always been good in soccer over there. Then they come here, and we can't put together a national team. Why? Because we just don't put that money into it.
Yeah, we don't invest in it.
That's a
I
great
think
point.
this men's team is pretty good, though. I think Christian
They're
Pulisic is
so good.
a real
I'm
leader.
They're young.
But they're young, right? And so I think
Yeah.
that's why they lost this year, is because they just don't have the experience.
Well, they need a couple more play. By the way, I love how your podcast is somehow converted into our
I know,
podcast right
I know.
now.
I'm thinking the same thing. I'm like, Maureen, we've answered your question, and it's obviously that you should just never take seasons because you just have tons to talk about if you're passionate about it. Or take a break. But I think what's cool with you guys ending on Super Bowl is that you know the sports inside and out, obviously, because we've just been talking about it for 10 minutes or so. But you figured out too, looking at the calendar, that like a Super Bowl, great place to pause, take whatever time you need, reset, jump back into it when you're. But it's kind of understanding what that calendar looks like, and it looks like Maureen's talking about badass stuff like knives, man caves, survival gear. This is incredible. So yeah, you could look at the calendar, and are there any big events or big product releases that you want to talk about? Maybe those points are the natural breaking points, or maybe you just have way too much to talk about. So you do like Doc and I do, and if one of you or both of you need to be out, you just do a batch recording or do pod swapping and bring on a host, a guest host for that week. I think there's lots of options for either side of that coin.
The shot
Sorry
show
to be
would
that
be a
person.
good
Bring it
breaking
back.
point. No, for Marine X, the shot show would be a good breaking point because most of the people in the industry all take off and go to the shot show. So
There you
that's
go.
a good opportunity for you to
course.
go to the shot show and interview people.
Yeah, I was
and
gonna
then just
say
take a
we'd
week
say be
off.
live from.
Yeah, we do it from the
exactly.
road. We're not
We
always
do
on
it from
the
the
road.
road.
Ooh, yeah, I don't think we're quite there yet.
Mark wants me to
That's
go.
up there though. Well, I definitely we'd actually thought about doing that for the Super Bowl episode, but it's like I don't think we're quite ready for that just yet. But maybe someday soon.
And for us, and my main concern for doing like a live during the Super Bowl was we're not at the point where we have like movable audio gear, and so I think that now that the audio quality of our podcast is so much further from when it started, I don't really want to go backwards.
Yeah.
But you are. Okay, so here I can't reach it. It's just in the other drawer. Shure MV88 Plus, and your phone. And sorry for Pete's Android, but it does work. You just slap it into one of these bad boys. It sits right here on the top, and that thing creates incredible audio. It's a simple mic. It's made by Shure, so the quality is banging. It's like your MV7, but in a portable, and you can stick it directly onto your phone. And believe it or not, your MV7 will run directly off of your phone. You can take that USB cable that you have connected into it right now and plug it into the phone and use the Shure Motive app, and you can talk MV7 straight out of an iPhone.
That's super cool.
Yeah,
it was
we're
all
always
worthwhile to
going
come on the podcast already.
Yeah, I was going to say we're always going to convince you to do it on the road. Doc and I last year were at, what was it? 8 or 9 events back. We did like a whole Doc and Katie road show, and we were setting up like our entire video podcasting space and multiple other live streams, like in hotel rooms, in weird conference spaces, and all these. And not to say
fun.
not to say things don't go wrong. They absolutely do. But I think that is the moment where it's just really like, I don't know. Those episodes have a special nature to them that is unlike anything else, because it is exciting that you're not in your space. Yeah, the audience kind of loves that.
The audience is very forgiving. But yeah, we had fun doing our show on the road.
Yeah.
To where we
were
going,
lucky
Mark?
too. One of our people was the lady from Shore, so they gave us an opportunity to talk about that microphone because she had one, and we did a lot. She did podcasts. She does her podcast from a hotel room with that microphone, and she plays guitar in the podcast. And I will tell you right now, if you go and listen to Song 43 podcast, you will not know that it's recorded in the hotel.
Yeah, she is so awesome. We are in probably the same way that we have not yet convinced you to go video. You should go video. But if we have not yet convinced you, Laura's the same way from Shure, because she's like, I just really like to be like snuggled in bed working on my podcast. So she loves that aspect of it. But yeah, her podcast is fantastic, and she's doing it literally funny, on the go.
You say it right now, and they're doing it now. So like we just did a small section of your podcast in video. You don't have to.
We'll send you the files.
You don't have to release the edited video. You can just do it live like we do at a live taping. So your audience has an opportunity to be there for the live taping. all the mistakes, everything can stay. Nobody cares about that. When I'm recording
Right.
on Twit, which is one of the largest podcast networks in the planet, right? We do a live studio audience and everyone's there for like a half an hour while we're setting up. Like people is in the chat, just talking, hanging out. This is
Yeah.
their chance to come and cruise, right? Then we start the show, we do the show, we stop in the middle to take bathroom breaks, do advertisement breaks, whatever, and we finish the show. Records about 2.5 hours, and people stay in the chat the entire time. And even after we're done, while Leo is doing pickups because he said something wrong or he needs to fix a line or whatever, people just hang out and continue to talk. And then once that's over, it gets handed to the editors. They have a big team, so it gets put out the next day as a clean show. So people watch the clean show, but trust you me, dude, there's like 400 or 500 people chilling in the audience every recording, and nobody cares about all of that stuff because it's no different than watching the live game. If you get to the game early, you're watching, them with the sweepers walking around. You see them setting up the table, putting the
You're
towels
getting
on
a
the
hot
end.
dog. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's no different. And I think you are perfectly set. Your main podcast can still be your audio, but doing a video podcast, number one, Mark and John, is easier to connect when you can see each other. And then number two, your audience, your community will get built around your pre-tapings and all of the dumb stuff Mark's going to say in the pre-taping.
Our
I do
outtakes
say
are
a lot of dumb
hilarious.
stuff.
I cut great stuff every week, and really, I'm sad about cutting great stuff every week, but it just isn't
Yeah.
on. It doesn't make sense in the conversation, even though it's really funny.
I know. See, John cut out all the best parts of our. No, just kidding. You'll have to do we've been talking for a while about doing like our mailbag episode where it's just like answering like all the clips of just answering helpful questions. I feel like you guys need like the outtake episode where it's just like important, awesome conversations that have nothing to do with
Absolutely.
anything else. And you could just stitch them together into an awesome,
Absolutely.
outtake episode. I think that'd be
Well,
fantastic.
it's funny, right? If you look at the site and you go to the photo gallery, it is literally a picture of the shoot around at a Brooklyn Nets game. All right, I'm gonna just go ahead and turn off my mic and then walk away. That is called the walk-off homer right there.
And so, I mean, for real, all those pictures are just cool sporting events that I've been to with Mark over the last 24 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm saying there's people sitting there watching them do the shoot around, so you can do your live taping. And it'll be perfect for you guys.
Yeah, once
We're
find,
saying you need to
and
go
I
into
think
her.
that's one of our main improvements, I guess, for season 2. We're gonna have a State of the Union meeting on Thursday, Mark's idea, and we're just gonna talk about things we want to add and things we want to change. And I think like getting an OBS template set up, because we don't have Max, unfortunately, but getting an OBS template set up is a real good thing to go for.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's all right. We're not judging you here. Well, Doc is, but I won't.
I am, but it's okay. They talk about throw balls, so there's that. No, I really think that first of all, the templating is super simple. Everything you're looking at that we have here, it's all Canva, so you don't have to even be like super.
I love Canva.
Yeah,
Right,
you can just make the whole entire thing in Canva. I'm a Photoshop guy, a Photoshop trainer before. Like I can say, I don't even bother because Canva's just quicker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's to me, a Photoshop person having to use Canva to make stuff. At first, I thought of it as like you realize you're asking Poppy to like bunt to first, right? He just came from first. He was standing there for hours and he just walked away from. Now you got to go back. But once I started using it, I got it. And just like when you need the bunt, there's a strategy to it, right? The thing that makes Canva so dope is your Photoshop tweakerness of all the buttons you got and cool stuff you can do is now gone. So now you have to just make what you got to make, right? And
Exactly.
there's an occasion when all you have is hot dog and beans in the kitchen, but you got to turn it into a meal. Turns out to be a pretty epic meal. So it's the same thing, right? That limitation actually makes it saucy.
I love hot dog and beans. That's a great meal just by itself.
Well, now I'm hungry as usual. This was the worst recording time. Every time I sit down for the 12 to noon recording, Ken is like, "I'm gonna go grab lunch. You want to come with me?" And I'm like, "Okay, I'll just stay here for the flow."
And I mean, just to talk about organic things, Mark has been learning Canva and getting really good at it, and most of our social media graphics he's making in Canva.
Say it again for the people in the back. These two are Google searching and learning and pushing all of the buttons. So none of us have any excuses. Excuses out the door. This is the year where we're all just doing the damn thing and seeing what comes of it and supporting each other and learning and growing together. Because yeah, I think it's been too much of us all saying it would be great if we started a podcast, or I really would love to start a podcast, or I'd really love to do this different aspect to grow my podcast. And I'm loving that the Flow Riders and more of our people are starting to just take action and do it and push the buttons and test things out. Doc did a whole interview challenge yesterday in the Ecamm community where he was like, who has not been an interview guest? And everyone's hands went up and he was like, all right, we're all going to be interview guests today. Come on and be interview guests. So yeah, I think
that was
good for us
fun.
to do things.
You guys, here's the hilarious part about that. I call myself being snarky about, like, who's hosting interviews that has never been a guest on an interview, thinking nobody would admit to that, because that's like, feeding your baby, baby bottle without squirting it on your hand first. Like, how you know how to tell the guest what to do if you've never seen the guest interface? Turns out a lot of people never seen the guest interface. And I was like, oops, well, you stepped in that one. Now you got to go show people what to do. But I guess, for people, it just didn't register that maybe I should probably know what that looks like. It's the reason why when the chef opens a restaurant, he makes all the waiters come in and eat the food. Because you can't recommend the fish if you never tasted the fish.
True.
Like, it just maybe because I come from restaurants, it would seem like a common sense thing to do. But yeah, it turned out a lot of people hadn't done it. So doing that was cool. And I love the fact that you're trying things and you're adding a little bit at a time. And that is the key element. Don't have to do everything all at once. First of all, you can't tell what's working if you do it all at once. You have to do it a little bit at a time, right? And so when you watch someone stick to their game plan but make adjustments accordingly, they come back in the fourth quarter and win. Andy Reid, I hate you.
Like the Chiefs this Sunday.
Like the Chiefs this Sunday.
Oh,
I have learned so much about sports.
They could have panicked when they were down, at the half. They could have panicked. I was hoping they would panic. Every ounce of my black and silver blood was like, finally, we get rid of them. Son of a... Words I can't say on this
podcast. Too funny. I'm loving, though, that our live studio audience is following right along with all the sports. We need to not forget about darts. We've been talking about water polo in the chat. We have people saying that the U.S. men's consistently do better than England, where everyone is right on board with you. The Flow Riders have just switched over into sports fans.
It's the sports day, you guys. It's all good.
It's sports day. Awesome.
I mean, we definitely talk about the non-traditional sports too. Like, I've taught John a lot about tennis because that's something that he definitely didn't know anything about before. But it's definitely just not like the football and the baseball but yeah, we've delved into a lot of different sports. But darts is definitely one. I think maybe that'll be in the next episode.
I was a competitive billiards player in high school, so we can talk about billiards.
We haven't gotten into that yet.
And I haven't heard any beer pong talk either. So I mean, really, there's like tons of opportunities here for all the sports.
We'll save that for July.
My missus was a state champion tennis player, and so I got to watch lots and lots and lots of tennis. And yeah, tennis is actually good now too.
Well, there were 3 episodes spanned the Australian Open, so there was a whole lot to talk about.
I love it.
My brother-in-law lives right next to the tennis complex right there in Flushing, and then
nice.
So his wife goes to play there practically every day, but they go to all of the events that they have there, and it's cool because when you're at their house and there's an event there, you can hear that thing. Like, people are it's polite, and so it's funny to me because it's loud on the loud parts and then it's dead silent. It's really weird. Being out of a stadium, you can hear the stadium vibrate, and it's always awesome. The tennis one is super cool because, like, it comes back again a couple minutes later. It's quite epic.
Mark went to
I was actually I went to Wimbledon and the US Open last year, and definitely 2 different animals there. But you're absolutely right, Doc. Like, it's so quiet, and then it gets super intense. In between points.
Dude, that's cool. You got to go to Wimbledon. That's something I've always kind of wanted to see.
And I'm definitely going to go again.
Sliding. You're not going?
No, I'm definitely gonna try and go again.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say,
You didn't take me this time, you guys.
here's a random funny one for you. Have you guys been after Netflix, especially? Have you been picking up on the F1 game at all?
I am so excited by that, by the way. The fact
Dude,
that
it's
they're
so
doing
good.
that. Yeah.
It's so good. It's
And you
quite
guys,
good.
just because we bring it up almost every episode, Mark doesn't have Netflix.
It's
I
one of
do.
our running
exactly.
gags.
I was just
It's one
waiting
of
in
our
my
running
moment of
gags.
silence. I was like, here we go. It's a running gag that Mark really. You see, there you go. You need to open up a Patreon and build a membership to fund Mark's Netflix so that you guys can continue to talk about it. See, marketing. There we go. Right
Full
there.
circle.
I am fully broken right now. What?
Seriously, it's
Like a
it's become a
monster,
thing.
Doc.
Oh my god! I am fully broken.
Oh my gosh. Well, we somehow I'm always amazed. I look down and I'm like, wow, it's been an hour. Done. right there. It flies by. Is there anything else that you want to share with people as they're starting or continuing on their podcasting journey? Any words of wisdom or fun facts that you've picked up along the way?
I think this is a thing I say a lot. People like hearing people who enjoy talking to each other. It's just pleasant, right? And I think that is our main strength. Mark and I and Pete, we really just enjoy talking to each other. And so, and Katie said this on her episode, which really resonated with me. The ability for people to become your friends, especially when you're such good friends, is a really powerful tool. So you should use that.
Ooh, Katie, you don't say those stuff on our podcast.
I know. I'm like, I'm marking that one.
that one is good. That one is good. You know, I find this hilarious because we have an ex-principal in the chat who asked a question about any talk on tabletop paper football. And the only reason why that's funny is I legit got, sent home from school suspended because I used to play tabletop paper
I
football
know,
so
you
much.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
I got
absolutely.
suspended from school for it.
Yeah.
I accidentally hit someone in the eye when I did that in high school. That was a little scary, but we could definitely do tabletop.
Oh my god. I want to know who invented that game. I want to know the history behind it
I
because it's
know, I
something
know.
that like kids all around the planet know what it is. Everybody's done it before, but oh my goodness, such a good game. And
We should all do a
that could-
challenge to see if we remember how to fold one.
I know, yeah. See, that would be
Nope.
like a fun, like live behind the scenes. As we could do little countdown timers. We'll help produce your behind the scenes. Who can make the fastest favorite tabletop paper football?
And then which one can go the
setup.
furthest, right?
And which one can go the
structurally
furthest?
most sound. Love it.
Right?
See?
You know what?
Love it.
One thing that was funny as kids, right? Like if someone were to told you that you were getting into like, algebra or engineering, you would have just not paid them any attention. But I remember having thoughts or conversation around adjusting the size of the football according to the size of the table. Like we need to
You were
make it a little
doing
bit.
engineering without, yeah.
But you just didn't know. You're just a kid. Like, no, you
Yeah,
can't
you
make
did
it
it
that
without
big.
even knowing. Yep.
The table's too small. But if the teacher tried to tell you that you were having those decisions and you were, doing a little trial and error type situation, let's open it back up, peel like an inch off, and fold it back up again. It'll be better. It's too heavy for this table. That kind of thing. You would have been like, no, you wouldn't do that homework. But at the same token, while you're sitting there solving these problems, most teachers or parents would come by and stop you because they're not realizing what you're getting out of it. And it kind of relates to what you're doing now. When you're doing a podcast and you're doing it from having a point, having a purpose, it just comes out and you can get all these things done.
Yep.
And no one scared you with, John, you have to learn these audio things. You're going to have to learn some production stuff. You're going to have to learn how to speak extemporaneously. You're going to have to learn how to guide a conversation.
John doesn't need to know how to speak
You know what I'm saying? But if someone gave you a list of the skills that you have now as a podcaster, you probably would have looked at that list and freaked yourself out. But the truth is, you know how to do all of these things, or they'll come to you automatically as you get into the mix.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Paul just asked ChatGPT about tabletop football. I know you did, Paul, because you did not type all of that out that quick.
Amazing.
What did it say?
Learn and do.
You guys got to put this. Oh, you got to put this in your show because this will be good. It says tabletop paper football, also known as flick football, is believed to have originated in the United States in the early 20th century. It is a game that can be played only using a piece of paper with one's fingers and making a popular pastime among students. And there's 4 more paragraphs. I'm like,
we
this
go.
guy's
Unbelievable.
just chat GPT the entire thing. That is
All right,
super
so
funny.
you can ask ChatGPT now to rephrase that as a limerick.
John's
do
like,
it.
next level. We're ready.
It'll do it.
Oh my goodness. Oh man, prompt engineering is so much fun. That is part of the game right there.
That is.
Man, guys, I am definitely going to go dive into so many shows because I do love American football. I was joking. I played it for many years, but after spending time abroad, from the military, the one thing that was on everywhere else was the soccer thing, which I also played as a kid, but again, it got squashed in college. My soccer and football coach fought as for which sport I was going to play because you couldn't play both there at the same time. And then I ended up in football, which was dumb. I should have stayed at soccer. I was much better at it. You know what I mean? And it's really cool that you've turned this into a podcast. It's something that you love. I hate when people say it's a passion project. You guys are beyond passion at this point. You guys are way beyond that because passions do go away. Ask any ex-girlfriend. But
Oh,
I was blaming it on us, guys. Don't get freaked out. But when you really have a purpose and you're enjoying it and you're just building something great, it comes out a lot easier. So I hope you continue to go. And I know that you've inspired some of the Flow Riders to do some stuff that they may have been afraid of. So thank you for that.
Yeah, congrats on an awesome first season. You've made it past pod fade. You're onward and upward. So celebrate time.
Did you guys make a name for your community yet?
I
you
was just
need a
thinking about
name.
that. I'm very jealous of the Flow Riders.
Ballers.
We definitely need to get to the Ballers.
Yeah.
I don't know. The Rock next to us for that one.
What about sweaty balls?
I know. You know what, Flow Riders? We literally, I think it was me. I was being obnoxious and asked them what they wanted to be called, and there were a whole bunch of ideas, and we were literally live being like, no, we don't want. Thank you for your ideas. We don't like any of these. And then one of the influencers that we work with all the time, Marshall Fawkes, who I just steal all of his genius, I think sent us either in the chat or direct messaged us and was like, what about Flow Riders as a joke? And I was like, that's it. That's the money.
So good,
that's the money shot. So now we've forced everyone to be called that. Sorry, Flow Riders. Sorry, not sorry.
When you guys do an episode on hating the Cowboys, let me know so I can put my
Doc's there for all your episodes. Ball talkers. Oh, there you go. We should ask the Flow Riders one. Yeah.
Rich
there we go.
Rich is a Cowboys fan, so that's why I had to say that.
I'm a Giants fan, right? So I have to hate the Cowboys.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit. We talked a little about the Cowboys on the last episode, but it wasn't really hating on them. But I know we could probably fill a whole episode on that, though. That's for sure.
Doc's review of your podcast is just going to be specifically on what you said in that episode and has nothing to do with the actual quality of the podcast itself. Yeah, we're.
This has been good. This has been super good. Hey Pete, we'll catch up. I'm coming to Mass soon. We'll figure it out. I'm sorry, Pete.
Sad panda. All right. Well, when Pete is here next, because we will invite Pete back on when he is in a safe internet space, we can just do a one-on-one with Pete and just not invite Mark and John at all. Make them feel sad. Spin it.
Well, and I think you brought it up, but having Pete, having us each have skills, like I'm doing a lot of the web design, I'm doing most of the IT stuff. Pete's, Mark's doing most of the management stuff and getting us, distributed and
marketing,
taking roles, I think is really important. And leaning into your skills is really important. And we couldn't do the show without Pete. So
absolutely.
Yep.
Dude, the best thing we ever did was get Luis to produce the show as opposed to just doing it. I know how to do it, but it's a lot more time, right? So having Luis do the show was brilliant. It's probably been the best thing that we've ever done.
Yeah,
I might or might not spend 5 or so hours a week editing. It's a lot. Hi, Luis.
Luis is like, it's like Clippy. Remember Microsoft and Clippy? Luis is like little Clippy, just pop in. Hey guys.
Yeah, he's like a much less obnoxious Clippy. Yes.
So yeah, super awesome. Thank you guys so much. Flow Riders, this has been great. Make sure you jump over to their podcast link. Paul and I put it in the chat. I will read it for you off the screen. These balls If these balls can
If
talk
these balls.
pod.com. If these balls, it's really funny to start a sentence with these balls. If these balls can talk pod.com. Slide over there. Make sure you go and check out the podcast. I'm definitely going to find this merch store and get me one of these cool Wicked shirts. It is in Celtics colors, so we're good. Thank you guys. It's been super epic. I really appreciate you guys being here. And I just know, again, I'm pretty sure you inspired some people who were afraid to do something. And I had a conversation with a friend yesterday, and she was on the right path. She knew exactly what she wanted to do, but she said actually having talked to someone who's done it made her feel better. And I was like, that's why we do this show. And so you guys being here and us having this conversation with you, somebody who's already like on the fence and kind of ready, but still that last little bit, having talked to someone who's done it has taken them and pushed them over the line. So I
Absolutely.
appreciate that. Absolutely
Like
amazing.
you guys said, rip the Band-Aid off.
You can do
Thanks
it.
for having
We
us.
believe in you.
Yeah, thank
Thanks
you
for
very much for having
coming.
us, guys. This has been great.
All right, Flow Riders, it's been another wrap. If you have any questions for us, make sure you send us an email at flow@ecamm.com. You can jump onto the Volley and leave your questions. It is at the QR code there. You can scan off the screen. And then be sure to jump over to your Apple Podcasts or wherever your podcast getting is got and get The Flow by Ecamm. You can find us here every Tuesday with the live taping, and then the actual video comes back live after that. This show has been awesomely sponsored by Descript. We talk about it on a regular basis. Descript is the coolest thing in the world. If you are afraid of doing this video podcast, Mark John, because you don't know how to edit video, you know how to use Word, you know how to edit a Google Doc. If you can use Word or you can edit a Google Doc, you can edit your video in Descript. You basically, when you're finished recording your podcast in Ecamm, well, sorry. When you finish recording your podcast in Ecamm, we press a button that says edit in Descript. You're going to have to drag your files in manually into Descript. It's okay. It'll be fine. It will instantly transcribe all of your audio, turn it into functioning words, and you can look at them on the screen and you can see all of the places where Mark said, and you can say, hey, Descript, can you take out Mark's bot? And you press a button, all the ums are gone, right? You can fill in things that you said. If you made a line that you kind of want to fix because you said something wrong, like every once in a while, growing up in DC, I still call the Commanders by their original name because I don't know, 50 plus years of doing it. I have to switch that. And well, now they're not worth talking about. And yes, I said that to a team that's from my neighborhood. We just, I could go into the script and highlight it and go, that one particular time where he might have used the old name, I can have it switched to the new name. And because it can replace it with my own voice, it will be like, and the Washington Commanders, just like that. You would never know that I ever flubbed the line from way back in the Mark Ripken days. So
magic.
You have the ability to do things like that. If you're doing things for your social media clip, Mark, you can just highlight a paragraph and say, turn this into an audiogram, which will give you a mini karaoke videos. And yes, people, I say karaoke. I don't even know who the hell Carrie is. I'm sorry. Nihongo no koto ga dekimasu kedo, mara karaoke, not karaoke. Anyway, so the script can go ahead and fix everything and just make it golden. And it's literally editing a Word doc. If you can highlight words and delete words, and you can edit a video just by fixing the document. It is one of the most amazing tools. And you know what? It's AI. And you don't even have to talk about practice. So thank you to Script for sponsoring this episode of The Flow. Katie, you want to say bye to the writers?
I was just thinking at the end of that, I'm like, I feel like Descript was made entirely for me. It was like, Katie doesn't have time to learn editing. So we will make her Descript so that she can just drag files in and edit in a Word document, which is her zone, my entire zone. Needed to add that, everyone, just because I really, really feel that deeply.
And the script does 26 languages, but the script does not understand my Japanese.
Yeah, Doc's fast talk and slang and Japanese. Descript is just like, but that's okay because I'm here to help with all of those edits. But I was supposed to say goodbye, so I will say goodbye. Thank you so much to Mark and John for joining us today. Be sure to check out their podcast. Thank you to all of the Flow Riders for hanging out with us and making our live studio audience the best, most fun place, and for listening to us and leaving reviews. We appreciate you.
Flow Riders out.